Hey, I'm Jeff and welcome back to another video in keeping with my regular routine of watering my houseplants on my first day off. Today is in fact my first day off from my full-time job. So I just go around and see which plants need water. I do use a watering can, a spray bottle, as well as I installed a garden hose downstairs here in my basement. So it's legit down here now. If you have a garden hose inside your house, in your basement or wherever, it's serious. I also have to go around and fill up my humidifiers and just do some other kind of random plant stuff like clean up leaves and that sort of thing. So let's get started. If you are new to my channel, then obviously you can see I have a lot of houseplants in this area. This is my basement and it's kind of my little YouTube plant workshop area. They're all under grow lights. They get no natural sunlight down here. So I have the majority of my lights are Soltech and Mother grow lights. So this is the Mother one. I had to back up one of my lights here just so I could get this whole plant in frame. But this is my Ficus Alaska THICCLY. It's an absolutely gorgeous plant. It is multiple stems in one pot. And I have this one upstairs near my south-facing window, so it gets some direct sunlight throughout the day. Just obviously made sure that I acclimated it to that location. This one has been getting really dry fairly quick. So I probably watered it a week ago, but you can see the consistency that I have in there is a lot. There's a lot of perlite and yeah, it's absolutely bone dry. So that's what this plant needs. The reason why I brought it downstairs is I want to take it to the bathroom to use my don't mind the mess here, but I have my garden hose running from my laundry room to my bathroom. So I want to spray this one off, clean the leaves, but it's also good for pest management. If there's any little creepy crawlers on there like spider mites, I find that if you spray your plants off regularly, not only to clean the leaves, but it's good for pest management. It just kind of blasts these guys off. There is still snow on the ground where I live here in Canada, so I can't take this plant outside, which is what I typically do in the summer, just give it a good spray. But since I have this garden hose now inside my house, I can do that in here. Just wanted to show the setup here real quick. This is an RV drinking water filter, so it filters out chlorine and any harmful minerals. There's a little extension piece that attaches to your faucet, and then I run the garden hose all the way to my bathroom. And then this setup is a 25-foot expandable garden hose. It comes with the spray nozzle and the shutoff valve here as well. Yeah, that one's good. So just give it a good blast. It's not going to harm the plant. And I'm going to rotate it at the back side. It's a little bit tougher to get the underside of the leaves when it's inside. It's okay if it's outside, like you can spray up into the sky and you're not going to do anything, but I don't want to get water on my ceiling or anything like that. So just do the best that you can. Get as close as you can and spray them off. So this is all I do, and then I just let the water drip down into the soil. I'm going to spray, or I'm going to change it to the shower mode. I think that's this one. So now I'm just going to give it a good thorough watering, and then I'll move on to the next one. This newest leaf on my Anthurium magnificum. Here's the last one, but look at the size difference between the two. This thing has grown tremendously, and it has this kind of like weird little pattern, almost like a little variegation right here. I'm not too sure what that is, but gorgeous. It's finally hardened off. It's a nice soft velvety leaf, but this one is absolutely beautiful. I have to show you guys something super satisfying with my garden hose when I fill up my little garden sprayer. The round portion of this nozzle fits perfectly in these little grooves like that. So I just hold it there and I just fill up my water container. It is a perfect fit. And that's how I fill up my garden sprayer. I just place the sprayer right on top and I just added water. So I thought that's pretty cool. For those people that like things that are like this, then you'll appreciate it. There, no mess. Now for most of my plants on the table here, I will use my garden pump sprayer. So you just pump it up and then I just use the spray wand. Obviously I will check this soil, make sure it's dry, and I also like to feel the weight of the pot. So this crusty looking burl marks is pretty light, and I know the soil's dry, so now I'm just going to use my watering wand to soak the soil until it comes out the bottom of the drain hole. Then I'll move on to the next plant. So it's coming out already, so I will let that drain through. Depending on how dry the plant was, sometimes I'll leave the water in the saucer and let those roots soak it up. In about 20 minutes, I'll come back, and if there's water still in the saucer, then I'll just dump it out. Now for this Anthurium magnificum, I do top dress a lot of my Anthuriums with sphagnum moss, so there is a nice chunky aroid mix underneath it, but I use moss on top, and this helps me not only to retain moisture in the soil, just because I do have it in terracotta, so it tends to dry out faster. So having sphagnum moss on top holds in moisture. If the moss is dry on top, then I know that probably the soil will be dry as well. It just helps me to know when to water my Anthuriums. And then I'll do the same thing. I'll just kind of go around the pot like this, and then I will just soak it entirely. So I know when the next time the moss is dry, then I'll need water again. And I can definitely feel the weight of the pot is much heavier, so you can see it's dripping out. Now I'm just going to let that sit in the saucer, and the same thing, I'm just going to let it kind of absorb that water. If there's any excess water in like 20 minutes or so, then I'll just empty out the saucer. Here's an Anthurium clarinervium. Oh, it's got a couple cute little new leaves. So this one I have not top dressed. I'm just using this as a bit of an experiment plant. It's kind of like a cluster. So it's got like multiple growth points, and it's getting a bunch of cute new little leaves. So this one, this is the soil mixture that I use. It's a tropical plant mix. It's got some orchid bark. This one is dry as well. So same thing, I'm just going to soak this. Occasionally I will take these to the shower, or even made like a portable plant shower, and I'll spray off the leaves just because these Anthuriums are susceptible to spider mites. So I'll definitely be letting this one sit in the saucer. Look at these cute leaves. I think these are some of the original ones, a little crusty. Just going to push that back. Now for this Anthurium, I'm growing it in a clear orchid pot. You can see there's some beautiful thick roots coming through this side. This one, I can see that there is still moisture in the soil. Right around this line down, you can see it's still a bit moist. So I'm not going to be watering this one, but I just wanted to show the different ways that I grow my plants. So I use terracotta, I use plastic, and yeah, with varying results, and obviously you have to water them differently. Plastic, it retains moisture more than, say, terracotta. Terracotta is very porous. It evaporates water fairly quick. So yeah, I just like to experiment with different types of plants in different types of pots, kind of thing. So here's a little jade plant. It was a cutting from the mother plant back here. I actually left this just laying on the floor, or sorry, in a pot sitting on the floor, not in any soil or anything like that. It rooted itself, and I finally just plunked it in a little container of soil. I'm going to give this one a little bit of water as well. Growing another jade plant from the jade plant that I have. This is my Magnificum crystallinum cross, and I recently had it in a video, as I did make my own DIY pot extender. I know there's some that you can purchase out there, but I just made my own. I actually got a few comments of people being really concerned about this method. They said I should just repot it into something different, or add like a support stake, as this one was getting the stem was getting a little bit stretched out. So I wanted that bare stem to be in soil so that it could set roots in the soil. A lot of people are concerned that it's going to rot the rest of the plant and etc. But as you can see, it is now developing a new leaf. It is still doing fantastic. This one is absolutely gorgeous. There's no ill effect to the plant right now. Actually, it's doing excellent. So I'm going to water this one as well, because I'm just feeling the weight of it. So same thing, I'm just watering the top, just letting it drip down. Need a little more pressure here. At some point, I probably will add a support stake. I can't extend this, for infinity. I understand that, but for now, I'm going to maybe add, if I need, like one more little height or pot extender. But I'm not going to go crazy. I'll definitely put this on a support stake if it continues to grow upright. But for right now, not too worried about it. It's growing. It's getting a new leaf. It's doing wonderful. This next one here is my beautiful Hoya polyneura. These were all grown from single leaf cuttings. So that's how you can get a nice full pot from basically any vining type plant, whether it's a Hoya, philodendron, or even a pothos. If you take individual leaf cuttings, stuff them all in one pot, eventually they become a full plant like this. So I'm gonna take this one over to my portable plant shower, and I'll use my spray bottle here just to show you how I clean off leaves on smaller plants. I have a lot of plants in this area, so that is really useful to me so that I don't have to take every plant back and forth to the bathroom or even outside to spray them off. I can do all my cleaning, watering, and maintenance in one area. So it saves me a lot of time and just kind of moving back and forth. So here is my invention, the portable plant shower, and I do get quite a few questions asking about like how I made it or what this material is. So I just used a little bin, and then I went to the dollar store, and this is foam board. So it's foam in the middle, and then it's like a plastic covered or coated paper. Now it does absorb some of the water, but it's not to the point where it gets like moldy or any mildew. I want to fabricate something that is a little bit more longer lasting, but everything that I found like at Home Depot and that sort of thing is really expensive, and I don't want to spend like $70 or $60 on corrugated plastic sheeting and that sort of thing. So I do plan on making a video on how to set this all up, but for the time being, I'm gonna have to use this little crusty setup right now. So I got my little pump action spray bottle, and then all I do is just spray off the leaves. The nice thing about this method as well is if you're watering with fertilizer, this is a good way to foliar fertilize. So just spray down the plant, spray down the leaves. That way it thoroughly waters the plant, cleans the leaves off, and then it contains all the water in here, and I simply just take it outside afterwards, dump it on the lawn. Like I said, it's winter right now, so I still just dump it outside. It's just extra moisture, and I'm not just dumping it down the drain. And now just place it back and see which other ones need to be watered. Here is a peace lily, a variegated peace lily. I'm gonna do this in the plant shower as well. Just take it over here. Got a little chair, and I'm gonna spray this one off as well. This one is pretty dry. When it gets dry, you get these yellow leaves as well. So I find with all my peace lilies, it's pretty much unavoidable to get these yellow leaves. Eventually they turn yellow, but as long as the new growth is looking healthy, it just continuously puts out new leaves and it drops the old ones. So if you see yellow leaves, it might not necessarily be an issue, but it can be a watering issue, whether it's too dry or too wet, but it also just might be a natural progression of the plant growth. There are a couple plants on this table here that are absolutely bone dry. This is the Anthurium villanorum. This one dries out so fast. It's in a plastic pot. It's got moss on top. Like I just watered this the other day and it's looking like trash. So I'm gonna take this over to the plant shower. And here's another one. This is the Anthurium. What is this one? I forget. Marmoratum. It was getting a new leaf, and then something happened, and I think it got stuck. So yeah, it's not looking the greatest. So you can see this is a good example of how these stems get kind of stretched out. You can add a support stake or a pot extender. I have not touched this one since getting the plant. It's been in the sphagnum moss, so I think I'm getting these deformed leaves for probably letting it get too dry. So I might have to take it out of the sphagnum moss here at some point and put it in a nice chunky aroid mix. This one's really dry, but this is the newest leaf on my Alocasia Jacqueline. Here's a large one, but this one is absolutely gorgeous. I just watered this one the other day, so I'm not going to give it any water, but just take a moment to appreciate that leaf. It's gorgeous. Now for this villanorum, I'm just going to drown it. Spray off the leaves here, but I'm just going to soak it. It dries out so fast, and I have no idea why. It actually takes quite a bit of water to thoroughly water a plant so that it's completely saturated. This is my beautiful Dieffenbachia reflector, and I only have a couple different varieties of this species. I stay away from Dieffenbachia in general just because they are very prone to spider mites. So this is one plant that you do want to spray off frequently, as you'll see little spider webs underneath the leaves, just kind of along the stem here. So very spider mite prone. I used to struggle with watering these plants as well. So what I found from what works for me is bottom watering. You can get a Tupperware container, but I like to use just the saucer, and I will fill up the saucer just to the very top, and I'll let the soil and pot just kind of soak and wick up that water. I won't let the top of the soil get wet, so I will just kind of gauge by the weight of the pot as to how, I guess, saturated the soil is. I would recommend bottom watering if you have a fungus gnat issue. They like to lay their eggs in the top of the soil, and they thrive in wet, kind of moist soil. So if you let the top 1 to 2 inches dry out, your fungus gnat issue should no longer be an issue, because it'll dry out those eggs, and yeah, they won't search out that soil, that kind of wet soil, which they thrive in. Filled up the saucer a couple times, but I'm just filling it up again. I'll let that kind of soak up. Does have a couple older crispy leaves I'm just going to pull off as well. Dieffenbachia are notorious for being toxic, so I would suggest wearing gloves with any sort of care or maintenance if you're pruning it. The sap is basically an irritant. I'm going to wash my hands afterwards, but I'm not being exposed to any sap. I'm just removing these lower leaves as their service is no longer needed. Getting some new growth up top here as well. Well, obviously you can't see it, but I'm just going to scan up here, and then you can see there's another beautiful new leaf growing. Look at these leaves. It is stunning. Here's an alocasia black velvet, which I have in perlite. I will water my perlite plants the same way as I water regular soil plants. So obviously when the perlite is dry, then I thoroughly saturate the soil. See, it's coming out the bottom, and I will let that sit in the saucer as well. The way you can tell with perlite if it needs to be watered or not is I actually just like to squeeze it, and you can see that there's some moisture on my fingers, where if it's dry, it'll basically just be dry dust. So that's how I water my perlite. Don't pay attention to this. This is a top secret little project. Stay tuned for that. I'm just going to push that out of the way. Oh, here's another one. Don't look. Turn your eyes. Here is an anthurium. Which one is this again? Crystallinum, getting a new leaf. Looking a little deformed. The moss, a little bit crispy, so I'm actually going to water with the watering can for this one. Same thing, I just kind of go around the top, making sure that all the moss is saturated, and then you can see it comes out the bottom of the drain hole. So I'll sometimes, depending on my mood, I may use the watering can, or I may use the garden spray bottle. So that's how I water most of my houseplants, is with those two methods. Now this could be genius, or this could be a disaster, but I brought my garden hose over to my humidifier to fill up. My humidity right now is 40%. I gotta fill up this humidifier, so it's working out so far. And I'll turn this on and give this area some humidity. I have a smaller one down here which I'll try as well. So I'm really digging this garden hose. It's turning out to be quite a benefit or a useful feature in this area. I wish everything was waterproof downstairs here so I could just go around and just spray everything down, but okay. I would call this a success. Okay, put the cap on. Oops. Okay. This large birds of paradise right here is getting a new leaf, so I'm trying to be very careful not to, I guess, damage the new leaf. So I'm just going to put that right here. I'm going to step out, and success. Okay, now I have my smaller humidifier right here. Same thing, I'm just using my garden sprayer. I'm going to put it to the jet setting just because it has a small little port there. So I'm just going to place it in there. This might be a mistake. Actually, no, we're okay. As long as I keep that over the hole there. Easy. There, perfect. Okay, that worked out okay. So filtered tap water. Okay, done. I do have a couple of these larger Wally Grow planters. This one has the Scindapsus exotica, and I do have another one with a golden pothos. Now, if you're unfamiliar with this type of pot, it has a little bracket which hooks onto the back. So the nice thing about this is you can remove it if you need to water it or do any maintenance. You can take it outside, repot, that sort of thing. And then once you're done, you can just hang it. Here's the little indentation. You can just hang it on the bracket that stays on the wall. The nice thing about this is it has obviously a section for your soil and your plant, but it does have a back watering reservoir. So that's where I'm going to add some water in. So I'm just going to move these out of the way. And then all I do is just pour the water in until maybe it reaches like halfway up. And I will let that water kind of soak in and absorb down into the soil. You can water the soil, so like top-down watering, and it will drain into the reservoir as well. When I bought this planter, I didn't want any water sitting at the bottom, so half of these holes are open and the other half, they are just for look. So I did drill a couple holes just on kind of this portion where it never had actual holes, and it became a little problematic because whenever I hung this back up on the wall after adding water in the reservoir, water started coming out the bottom. So I do have to let this drain before I put it back on the wall. So let's see if it'll start dripping out at all. So I'll just kind of tip it over a little bit, just let that water drain out if there's any excess at the bottom. That's really the only thing or the only problem I've had with this. Otherwise, they're just such beautiful, easily accessible planters. This one I think was really dry because the water has already been soaked up through the bottom. So I might actually add just a little bit of water on top and see if I can get a little bit of water pooling at the bottom here. I have a couple of those plastic moss pools that I recently put some plants on. They've actually held their water or their moisture in the moss quite well. I think it's been about 4 days and I think they're just starting to dry out. So I'm going to check them out and I'm going to spray down the moss a little bit more. This one has definitely done much better than those DIY round poles. I think the moss is really dry right now, but I checked yesterday and it was still a little bit on the moist side. So all I'm going to do is water from the top for right now. I'm just going to let that soak in. I much prefer the not only the look of these plastic moss poles, but where I live, it typically gets dry, like very dry here in the winter. I live on the Canadian prairies, and we get really hot summers, but the humidity isn't generally that high, so I'm not surprised those DIY moss pools didn't really work out. This holds on to moisture a little bit better just because it has a closed back. It can't evaporate as fast as it did with the round one, which I still have right there. I still have one plant that I'm air layering. This is the Philodendron Splendid. So once that grows roots, I'm gonna kind of chop it up and then I'll take it off that round pole and probably put it on a plastic one like this. I just made a video on why I probably will never use those round DIY moss poles like this one right here. It's just the chicken wire. It doesn't work for my environment. It dries out way too fast. So I know a lot of people like that style of moss pole, but for me, in my conditions, it doesn't work. So I'm not saying don't use that one and you must use this. I will never say that because there's many different ways of growing houseplants. So there's not one, perfect or specific way. I'm not here to say like mine is the perfect way because I know a lot of people don't like growing plants on planks, but I do. It is, it's just satisfying watching these plants kind of latch on to just a bare piece of wood and grow up and get larger leaves. Here's another Splendid which I put on the plastic pole, and I'm just going to do the same thing. Just water the top. I want the aerial roots to grow into the moss so that eventually I can just prop and or chop and prop and then just continue to let the plant grow larger leaves. Okay, and here's the chicken wire one, and like I said before, another reason why I don't like it, aside from it drying out really fast, is it always gets like really flaky. So there's always moss on the floor after you give it water or even just touch it. So I'm air layering this part right here, so I have a bag around a section of the root system, and I'm just going to, whoops, that's just dripping down. I'm just going to let this kind of drip through. I want this portion of the moss to stay moist all the time. You can see the moss is pretty wet right now, so a lot of times I'll just stick the spray wand right on the edge of the moss, and then I'll just let it kind of drip down. This one's really tipsy, but that's all I'll do is just let that spray in like that, and then just kind of flow right down the moss bowl. So it might take a few minutes, but that's okay. Look at these gorgeous leaves. Like, look at this newest leaf up here. Beautiful. They're slowly sizing up with each new leaf. And the stem looks like it's getting a little bit thicker as well. I think the last plant I'm going to show for this video is my beautiful Ficus elastica. This is the Robusta. I did recently prune this one in order to get it to branch out. It's got 3 beautiful branches. It's growing underneath my Soltech Aspect grow light. I'm going to take this over to the shower and spray this large one off, as it needs a good thorough watering as well. As you can see, I have 2 other types of plants. This is a jungle cactus, or jungle orchid cactus, whatever you want to call it. And then I have the Monstera, I can never pronounce it, the Pinea partia. It's from the Little Bitty Plant Company. I buy most of the houseplants from there. So I stuck a little cutting in the soil. I did have a subscriber or a viewer mention that they do this as well with some of their houseplants. And it's not only a nice feature when you have another plant growing up the base of a larger plant like this one, but you can also use these plants to tell if the soil is dry. So if this plant gets a little bit droopy and you have it with something that typically doesn't show like droopy leaves or anything like that, then this is a good way to determine if your soil is dry, just by checking the leaves of other plants. So pothos, they tend to get a little bit droopy. So if you have a pothos cutting in here and you see it drooping, just be sure to check the soil. You see this one is absolutely bone dry as well. So I like to put cuttings in there, and it sounds like some other subscribers and viewers do as well. So this one, so I'm just going to remove this little sheath here. These leaves are gorgeous. Okay. Same thing, just spray it off. These ficus plants, they're prone to spider mites as well. So that's why I like to clean these ones off regularly. And then just rotate it so I can get the back side of the other leaves and the front side of these ones. Just spraying it off. And then just soaking the soil. But I'm going to change that to the shower setting to thoroughly saturate the soil. Okay, that's more of a, where's the actual shower? This one. There. And just soak it. So I think this is where I'm going to end the video. Otherwise, it's going to be a 2-hour or longer video, and I know some of you might actually watch it to the end. I think the majority of you will probably just move on and yeah, continue on with your day. I don't have 2 hours to watch plant care videos, but yeah, I'll definitely be making another houseplant watering chore video down the road. So if you have any comments or questions, please leave it down below in the comment section. I try and read every comment that you guys send me. Sometimes it might take me a little bit longer. Yeah, and sometimes there's just way too many that I can't get to them all, but I do read them. So I appreciate all the support. I appreciate the comments. Thanks for watching my video. Take care, everyone. Bye.